Listen, son, every man has heard that voice, the quiet, reasonable whisper that says, maybe this is enough. It doesn't come when you're failing. It comes when you're tired, when you're bleeding, when you're close. That's the moment quitting visits your door, not as an enemy, but as a guest that sounds polite enough to let in. And most men open the door, but not you, not today. Because here's the truth. Quitting is not rare, it's not evil, it's normal. It's a reflex built into your bones. Your brain was not designed for greatness, it was designed for survival. It hates discomfort, it flees fatigue, and it worships ease. That's why every man wants to win, but only the disciplined few are willing to hurt for it. Picture this. The alarm hits 4:15 a.m., the same time you promised yourself yesterday you'd rise. But your body feels like it's made of lead. Your eyes burn. And somewhere in that silence, a voice whispers, 5 more minutes. You deserve rest. You open your inbox, 27 unread emails. The client you bent backwards for hasn't replied in days. You check your progress, slow, crawling, barely moving, and that same voice mutters again, why keep going? Maybe this is enough. That voice is not weakness, it's the system test. Every disciplined man hears it. The difference is most let it drive. The rest just let it speak. Because the thought of quitting doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. But the decision to quit, that's what keeps men average. Let's dissect it. Quitting isn't born overnight. It builds in layers. Fatigue. Your body breaks before your will does. The soreness, the sleepless nights, the caffeine-fueled mornings. Your mind confuses exhaustion for defeat. Comparison. You scroll. You see others further ahead, cleaner, richer, happier. You forget that the algorithm shows you highlights, not hunger. Slow progress. You've been consistent, but the mirror doesn't change, the followers don't grow, the results don't come. You mistake delay for denial. Social pressure. Friends laugh at your routine. Family tells you to be realistic. The crowd always mocks what it cannot match. Fear of loss. What if you give everything and still fail? So you settle before the pain can expose you. And here's the psychological truth. Your brain rewards novelty, not endurance. It releases dopamine when you chase something new, not when you grind at the same thing every day. That's why quitting feels like relief. It resets the chemical loop, but it's fake. It's temporary pleasure for permanent regret. Understand this. Quitting is not a sign of failure. It's a signal, a flare from the battlefield that tells you you've reached the edge of comfort. The smoke alarm doesn't mean the building is lost. It means something valuable is burning. So instead of fleeing, walk toward it. The heat you feel isn't punishment. It's proof you're finally where the weak ones stopped. The man who learns to follow the fire instead of running from it becomes unbreakable. He stops fearing the pain because he knows pain is how the muscle, physical or mental, learns to harden. So when that thought whispers again, don't argue, don't reason, just answer with one command: continue. Bill Gates didn't wake up rich or sure. In his early 20s, he dropped out of Harvard, not out of arrogance, but out of obsession. Nights turned into mornings, weeks into months. He built and rebuilt code that didn't work. Investors mocked him, competitors dismissed him, and still he stayed. He faced the same voice, "You're wasting your time." But instead of quitting, he doubled down. He followed the heat and forged something the world couldn't ignore. That's the pattern. Every man who becomes a legend has stood at that door, the door where quitting knocks. And all they did differently was this: they didn't open it. So when the thought of quitting comes, good. It means the work is real. It means the fire has started. Don't run from it, don't feed it. Just recognize it for what it is, the first test. And if you pass it, if you stay, you'll discover something science already knows. Discipline isn't born,
It's trained. Listen, son, your brain is not your enemy. It's your primitive manager. It doesn't care if you become great, it only cares if you survive. That's why it keeps pulling you back to comfort, because in its logic, survival is safety, and safety is success. But you weren't built to survive. You were built to dominate. And that's where the war begins, between what you want and what your biology permits. Your brain wants you to stop because it believes effort means danger. Every muscle burn, every night you stay up, every rejection, your brain reads it as a threat. So it whispers, rest, quit, run. Not because it hates you, but because it still thinks you're a caveman being chased by lions. You're not. You're being chased by your own potential, and that's far more dangerous. Here's how the machine works. Dopamine, the chemical of drive, spikes when you start something new, when the chase begins. That's why you're motivated on day one, why planning feels good, why the first week of anything feels alive. But when the novelty fades and the reward delays, the dopamine drops, and your brain panics. It wants relief, not results. Then cortisol enters, the stress signal. It links effort with discomfort. So the longer the grind, the stronger the urge to withdraw. That's why quitting doesn't feel cowardly, it feels logical. Your own biology just made it sound like a smart decision. Habits are just neural highways. The more you travel them, the smoother they get. When you quit something repeatedly, you strengthen the highway of escape. When you stay, when you ignore that whisper and keep pushing, you carve a new road through resistance. That's the rewiring process. And like any construction site, it's loud, messy, and painful. So, here's how you fight back. Clinically, not emotionally. You don't argue with the brain, you train it. Interruptions become training moments. When your focus breaks, don't curse it, use it. Return faster. Every comeback builds neural speed. The goal isn't endless focus, it's faster recovery. Delay the reward, but not the recognition. Break the big task into visible checkpoints. The student who studies for hours without pause burns out. The disciplined one studies in chunks. 45 minutes, break, repeat. Each session is a micro win. The brain learns to associate effort with small, steady pleasure instead of collapse. Build stress tolerance by exposure, not avoidance. You don't beat anxiety by escaping it, you build immunity by facing small doses daily. That's why the soldier trains under fire, not to get used to bullets, but to make calm a reflex. Architect your environment. Don't rely on willpower, build friction. Make discipline easy. Set your workspace before dawn. Schedule workouts before excuses. And make indulgence hard. Delete shortcuts. Hide temptations. Block distractions. The brain obeys the path of least resistance. Design that path to lead you forward. Mark Zuckerberg didn't build Facebook with luck. He built it with architecture. He slept in his office, ate cheap meals, wore the same clothes daily. Not because he lacked taste, because he refused to waste mental fuel on decisions that didn't build his empire. He rewired his brain to make focus automatic. He made quitting difficult. Every variable was controlled. The environment, the noise, the input. That wasn't just work ethic, it was neuroengineering. He turned his brain from a primitive manager into a programmable weapon. And that's the difference between burnout and breakthrough.
You don't need superhuman grit. You need systems that make discipline inevitable. Start with one neural highway that sabotages you, the loop that always pulls you back. Maybe it's scrolling, maybe it's procrastination, maybe it's overthinking. Identify it, name it, then rewire it with one act. Every time the impulse strikes, do the opposite for 60 seconds. That's the rep. That's how you start the rewiring.
The brain is programmable, but the code isn't written with comfort, it's written with resistance. Every time you override the urge to stop, you carve new pathways of control. And over time, control becomes instinct. That's when you stop fighting the urge to quit, because the urge no longer exists. You've burned it out of your system. Next, we move from science to strategy, the discipline blueprint, how to weaponize pain and turn persistence into power. Listen, son, motivation dies by morning, ritual doesn't. Every man who lasts longer than his emotions understands this law. You don't move because you feel like it. You move because it's what the code demands. The weak wake up and check if they're inspired. The disciplined wake up and execute. You think greatness starts with energy? No, it starts with structure. Discipline is architecture. It's the skeleton that holds the weight of purpose when everything else collapses. Ritual is how you stop quitting before the thought even forms. The alarm goes off. There's no debate, no scroll, no sigh, no half second to negotiate. You rise because the code said so. The cold floor meets your feet, and that's the first battle of the day, won. Then comes the first hard thing, the task no one will clap for, no one will see, no one will reward. You do it in silence, because that's where men are built. The first hour belongs to you. No messages, no noise, no validation. The world still sleeps. You move. That's how quitting dies. Not in loud promises, but in quiet rituals. Discipline is not about being special. It's about doing ordinary things without emotion. That cold start trains your nervous system to obey before comfort arrives. The first hard thing ritual teaches your brain a language it doesn't want to learn, discomfort as command. Once you've done the hardest task, the rest of the day becomes predictable terrain. The quit thought loses its grip because you've already proved who's in control. Then comes the second ritual, the no visibility block. You work without showing it. No posting, no progress updates, no audience. You train the muscle of doing without applause. Because applause feeds ego, and ego feeds fatigue. You strip both away. You work for the work's sake, because that's how mastery is born. Michael Jordan didn't build his name under stadium lights. He built it in empty gyms, with no one watching, dripping sweat in silence while the world slept. That's what separated him. Not talent, repetition, ritual. The off-season mornings, the isolation, the refusal to rely on the rush of competition to stay sharp. That's what made him untouchable. And then, the third ritual, the 2-minute failure audit. Every night, before the lights go out, you face your day. You look at where you failed, not emotionally, but clinically. You ask, what made me hesitate? What made me slow? You write it down. You correct it tomorrow. That's how discipline becomes feedback. You turn quit impulses into instruction manuals. Ritual kills emotion. Emotion kills consistency. That's the formula.
You want to be a student? Fine. Your ritual starts with focus blocks. Study, break, repeat. No background noise. You time every session like a soldier. You rest because it's scheduled, not because you're bored. You finish because that's the deal you made with yourself. You want to be an entrepreneur? You wake before clients, plan before distractions, and execute before doubt wakes up. You don't need an audience. You need systems. You feed your body function, not flavor. Food is fuel, not reward. You want to be an athlete? You train through soreness until pain stops being news. You measure yourself not by comfort, but by consistency. You win not when you feel ready, but when your preparation makes readiness irrelevant. Each ritual strips away softness. Each system builds resistance. And slowly, quitting becomes harder than continuing. Understand this. Ritual is war, disguised as repetition. Every task, every routine, every sleepless morning is a declaration that you will not bow. Quitting is not an option because you've made continuing your default setting. J.K. Rowling wrote in cafes she could barely afford to sit in. Her manuscript was rejected 12 times. 12! But she returned every day like it was a job, because it was. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because the ritual demanded it. That's the secret no one wants to hear. She didn't wait for belief. She worked until belief had no choice but to arrive. You too have to build your belief brick by brick, routine by routine, day by day. Pick one ritual, just one, something measurable, the first hard thing, the no visibility block, the 2-minute audit. Then repeat it every day until it becomes the fabric of your life. Don't post it. Don't explain it. Don't break it. Do it because I said so. 30 days. No negotiation. No softness. No skipping. That's how you kill the quit thought before it ever reaches your throat. That's how you become built different.
Failure is not your enemy. Your softness is. You didn't fall apart because life hit you too hard. You fell apart because you thought pain meant punishment. It doesn't. Pain is precision. It points to where you're still blind. Let's not romanticize this. Picture it. You spend 6 months building something you believe in. You pitch it, post it, push it, and nothing. No sales, no clicks, just silence. Or maybe you trusted someone, in love, in business, in friendship, and they left when it mattered. Maybe you trained for a win and still lost to someone who didn't. Maybe your account is so empty you start checking it for spelling errors. That's the wound. And I need you to understand, every wound has coordinates. It's a data point. But if you waste time licking it, it festers. You're not supposed to feel your way through failure. You're supposed to study it. The weak collapse into narrative. I wasn't lucky. They don't see my value. It's not my fault. But the disciplined man, he writes a report. He doesn't drown in emotion. He performs an autopsy. See, humans are meaning-making creatures. We can't help but build stories around our suffering. But stories are tools, and the disciplined man chooses which one to write. When something breaks, you have 2 narratives available. Victimhood? The world did this to me. Or instruction? I learned exactly what broke. That's what separates people who stay in the pit from those who build ladders from it. Here's how you turn a wound into a weapon. 4 clinical steps. 1. Identify the concrete loss. Strip it of emotion. Say it plain. I lost money. I failed the exam. She left. No adjectives, no drama. Clarity hurts, but confusion kills faster. 2. Map the causal behavior. Ask, what specific move led to this outcome? You trusted too quickly. You planned too loosely. You executed too slowly. Don't outsource the blame. Every external failure begins as an internal one. 3. Extract one actionable fix. Not a list, not a vision board. One micro adjustment. It could be validate before building. Confirm before trusting. Wake up 1 hour earlier. One fix and one test. 4. Run the test again immediately. When failure hits, feedback is still hot. Don't wait. Delaying the next move is how most people stay broken. Speed is survival. Execute the correction while the scar still stings. That, son, is the 5-minute autopsy. It's not therapy, it's surgery. 5 minutes of focused dissection, no self-pity, no storytelling. You look at the data, extract the insight, implement the fix. Every failure becomes a training simulation for your next strike. Ask Steve Jobs. He built Apple. Then Apple kicked him out, publicly, brutally. The world laughed. But he didn't post quotes about perseverance. He built again. He created Next and Pixar. Years later, Apple begged him to return. And when he did, he built an empire. That's the pattern. Public failure, private iteration, strategic re-entry. Look at Elon Musk. Rockets exploded, factories stalled, cars missed deadlines. Every failure was televised, but each one was a data point, a technical feedback loop. He didn't take failure personally, he took it procedurally. The rockets flew because he stopped crying over explosions and started debugging them. Understand this, son. Pain is not punishment, it's calibration. It measures how much reality you can handle. And most people fail not because they lose, but because they interpret losing as final. Every man who built something that lasted learned the same principle. Meaning is not discovered, it's assigned. You decide what your pain means. Does it mean I'm finished? Or does it mean I've just located a flaw in my process? Do this 100 times. 100 small autopsies. Each time you remove one weakness. Each time you refine the man you are becoming. And one day you realize the wounds didn't slow you down, they sculpted you. So the next time life cuts you open, don't rush to cover it. Bleed, observe, learn. Because every drop contains the map to your next evolution. You don't escape failure, son. You metabolize it. And when you master that, when you turn every cut into code, your scars stop being reminders of pain. They become the raw material of your legacy. Listen, son. Quitting doesn't always sound like giving up. Most times, it sounds like scrolling. It looks like checking your phone again when you should be building something. It hides inside noise, not silence. Men don't fall because they ran out of strength. They fall because they lost control of their attention.
The modern version of quitting isn't a dramatic breakdown. It's a gradual drift. You don't announce it. You just stop showing up fully. You start confusing movement for progress. You're everywhere, in group chats, on calls, on timelines, but nowhere deep. You post more, you practice less. You talk about discipline, you don't train it. You attend every meeting, volunteer for every committee, give opinions on every trend, but the one thing that defines your legacy, it's untouched. That's not harmless distraction, that's surrender disguised as productivity. Let's dissect it. First, there's social approval consumption, the addiction to being seen trying instead of quietly succeeding. You start building for applause, not impact. Every time someone claps, you lose the need to finish. The dopamine becomes your paycheck. Then there's performative busyness, the disease of the modern man. You fill your calendar to avoid your craft. You feel important, but you're accomplishing nothing. You've mistaken friction for effort. You think because you're exhausted, you're effective. You're not. And finally, confirmation traps, surrounding yourself with people who echo your comfort. The same voices, same validations, same circle that keeps you from growing. You start mistaking familiarity for safety. That's how men quit now, quietly. Not with an explosion, but a notification sound. You want to know what separates the builder from the drifter? Attention. It's the last real battlefield left. And if you can't control it, you'll never control your results. Let me tell you a story. In the early years of Twitter, the founders were drowning in noise. Investors pulling from one side, users complaining from the other, media pressure turning everything into spectacle. Product stalled, leadership fractured. Everyone wanted to be heard. No one was listening. Ev Williams nearly walked away. But then came the reset, a focus intervention. He enforced silence, cut meetings, killed side projects, recentered everything around one obsession: stability and simplicity. Within months, Twitter stabilized. The noise didn't vanish, it just stopped deciding. Same principle applies to athletes. There was a time when fame nearly ruined one of the best. Let's call him the champion who forgot hunger. The endorsements came, the cameras followed, and training became a background task. His form declined. Coaches whispered burnout. Until one season, he vanished. No interviews, no PR, just isolation. He cut the noise. 6 months later, he returned and dominated again. The world thought he reinvented himself. He didn't. He just reclaimed his attention. That's what you're fighting for. Focus isn't luxury, it's armor. And if you don't build systems around it, the world will steal it before noon. Here's your counter-strike. Scheduled solitude blocks. Every day, 3 deep work sessions. No phone, no input. One task, minimum 90 minutes. You'll hate it at first. That's how you know it's working. Meeting hygiene. If it doesn't produce or clarify action, it dies. Cancel it. Replace talking with execution. Social input detox. Stop feeding your brain with comparisons. Twice a day, step away from screens. Complete technology fasts. Let your mind relearn silence. Explicit production metrics. Measure output, not effort. How many pages written? How many sales closed? How many reps finished? Activity is noise. Output is truth. Weekly audit. Once a week, review your production metrics. No excuses, numbers only. If output dropped, trace it back to attention leakage and fix it immediately. For 7 days, live like a machine built for clarity. 3 deep blocks a day. 2 tech fasts per day. 1 full social media cleanse per week. 1 metric review every Sunday night. That's your 7-day war protocol. Run it, and you'll realize it's not the world that's been stealing your focus, it's you.
Every scroll, every useless meeting, every conversation that leaves you dumber, that's a small act of quitting. And if you don't amputate the noise will amputate your ambition. Listen carefully, son. Your mind is the throne room of your discipline. Once you let noise sit there, it will whisper you into mediocrity. So guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Listen, son. The world does not honor those who quit when it hurts. It honors the ones who return. The ones who walked away, tasted comfort, and came back for war. Every man will break once. Every empire cracks somewhere. But the rare few, the ones who rise again, they're the reason the rest of us believe in legacy. This is not a motivational speech. It's a return protocol. You've thought of quitting. Maybe you already did. You shut down the business. You stopped training. You ghosted the project. You let your discipline rot in the corner while life went on without you. You told yourself you'd come back when things felt right, but things never feel right again after surrender. So here's the truth. The return doesn't wait for comfort. It begins with confrontation. The first step is humility. You look at the wreckage, the missed deadlines, the people you disappointed, the time you wasted, and you accept it without drama. You apologize where necessary, briefly, calmly. No begging, no speeches. A disciplined man owns damage and rebuilds in silence. The second step is resetting expectations, not for the crowd, for yourself. You strip off the fantasy of instant redemption. You rebuild small, deliberate, visible. You return as a craftsman, not a savior. The goal is not to prove you've changed. It's to produce until no one can deny it. The third step is redeclaring mission, not to everyone, to yourself and the few who matter. Speak it once with clarity and never repeat it again. Public commitment is meaningless without private structure. So you declare the mission, then you move. Now comes the tactical part. You don't sprint back into glory. You crawl back into order. Short-term wins, break the mountain into rocks, stack them daily. One completed task, one delivered promise, one metric you can see. The mind rebuilds confidence through completion, not dreams. Transparent metrics. Measure everything. Let the numbers speak where emotion once screamed. If you wrote one page, track it. If you made one sale, log it. The comeback is math, not magic. Visible ritual. Let your environment see your return before your words announce it. Wake at the same hour. Work at the same desk. Maintain the same sequence. Consistency is credibility in motion. Now, let me show you what it looks like. Robert Downey Jr. was done. Hollywood had locked him out. The industry labeled him unreliable, addicted, unstable. His name was a warning, not a headline. But the man didn't beg for redemption. He built it. One clean day became one clean week. One small role became another. He didn't chase forgiveness. He chased repetition. By the time Iron Man hit theaters, it wasn't luck. It was discipline in armor. The comeback wasn't cinematic. It was statistical. Or look at Howard Schultz. Fired from his own company's control, Starbucks turned into something he no longer recognized. He could have walked away for good. Instead, he returned, not as a nostalgic founder, but as a strategist. He listened, cut distractions, restored focus on quality. It wasn't a sentimental return, it was surgical. That's what real returns look like: quiet precision, not emotional chaos. And that's your assignment now. You don't return with noise, you return with order. You don't explain yourself, you execute. You don't ask the world to believe in you, you build until belief becomes irrelevant. Here's your checklist. Say it out loud. I confront my failure without flinching. I fix what I broke, not what I can't control. I rebuild with proof, not promises. I measure my rise in actions, not applause. I finish what I once abandoned. This is how men return. Not with fireworks, with fire. Because staying isn't a single act, it's a decision you remake every day. Legacy is not a trophy, it's repetition under pain. Remember this: quitting isn't one moment, it's a pattern. And the second you break that pattern, you reclaim your name. Ordinary men yield when it hurts. Men built different convert that hurt into history. Now get up, return, and finish what you started. Built different.